Unit 2, Lesson 2, Introducing Proportional Relationships with Tables. I can use a table to reason about two quantities that are in a proportional relationship. I understand the term proportional relationship and constant of proportionality. We're going to use constant of proportionality like it's going out of style. So it's going to be a really important phrase that we have to learn for this unit. So it says, here is a table that shows how many rolls of paper towels a store receives and when they order different numbers of cases. So when they order 1 case, they get 12 rolls. When they order 3 rolls, they get 36. 5, they get 60. 10, they get 120. What do you notice about the table? So you're coming up with something that you notice. So I notice that the number of cases times 12 equals the number of paper towels. What's something you wonder? Why aren't they making it cheaper if you buy more? Or why, well, I guess what I could say is the cost different? Because that's not really in the chart for the different quantities. Okay, so like, you know how when you get a family size container of Oreos, it's cheaper per Oreo technically than if you buy the pack of 4 at the register. So we're going to take a look at activity 1, feeding the crowd. It says that a recipe of dry rice will serve 6 people. So 2 cups of dry rice will feed 6 people. Complete the table as you answer the questions. So if I know that 2 cups feed 6 people, what am I going to multiply by? So 2 times 5 gives me 10. 6 times 5 is 30. So then I'm going to switch colors. 9 times 5 is 45. So 3 times 5 is 15. So you want to think, what can I multiply by on each side? How did you determine how many people 10 cups of rice served and how many cups of rice are needed for 45 people? So what I was using were equivalent ratios. Or a factor. So I'm using a factor or a multiple to figure out what goes where. So my answers were 30 and 15. So then it says, a recipe says that 6 spring rolls serve 3 people. So again, I'm thinking 6 times what gives me 30? 6 times 5. So 3 times 5 would be 15. So then I have to think, is there another way to fill in the table? So I'm going to have to figure out what it would be for one person. So I'm going to add a row. I'm going to divide by 3. Because I want to figure out how many spring rolls each person eats. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that means that if I'm still filling in my table, that if I multiply by 28, I would multiply by 28 here. So that would be 56. So 28 people are going to eat 56 spring rolls. And the same thing, I would multiply by 20. So I'm going to multiply this side by 20. I get 20. 1 times 20 is 20. So 20 people would eat 40 spring rolls. A bakery uses 8 tablespoons of honey for every 10 cups of flour to make bread dough. Some days they bake bigger batches, and some days they bake smaller batches, but they always use the same ratio of honey to flour. Complete the table as you answer the questions. So they're using the same ratio. So I'm going to add another row to my table, and I want to figure out how much it is for 1. So I want to get to 1 cup of flour. So I'm going to divide by 10. If I divide that side by 10, I have to divide this side by 10. So I get 0.8. So now I can fill in the rest of my table. So I need to think, what would I multiply 1 by to get to 20? Well, I'd multiply by 20, right? So now I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to do 8/10 times 20. And I get 16. All right, so then I'm going to start to think, okay, what else could I figure out? Well, I'm not really sure on the honey side because that's what I'm missing. So I'm going to add another row to my table. And because I can't go down, I'm going to go up. And I'm going to figure out what it is for 1 tablespoon of honey. So I'm going to divide by 8 on each side. Because 8 divided by 8 is 1. So 10 divided by 8. So again, I'm using my calculator, and you're going to want to have a calculator for this whole unit. So 10 divided by 8 gives me 1.25. Well, once I figure out what it is for 1, I can figure out any amount. So I'm going to switch colors. So 1 times 20. So I'm going to do the same thing here. 1.25 times 20. And I get 25. I'm going to switch colors again. So 1 times 13. So I'm going to multiply 1.25 times 13. And I get 16.25. So then it says, what is the proportional relationship represented by the table? Explain your reasoning. So I could say 1 tablespoon of honey equals 1.25 cups of flour. Or I figured out another relationship, right? I said that it could also be 8/10 of a tablespoon of honey is equal to 1 cup of flour. So there were 2 different relationships, but they're exactly the same. They're proportional. So that means that they're equivalent to each other. So practice problem 2. A certain shade of pink is created by adding 3 cups of red paint and 7 cups of white paint. So that's your red and that's your white. So they want to know what the constant of proportionality is. So constant of proportionality is how much it is for 1. So I have to figure out how much it is for 1. So I can't work the way I intended because my empty box is on top. So normally I go down, but this time I'm going to go in reverse. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. So now I'm going to do 3 divided by 7. So when I do it in my calculator, I'm going to get a crazy number because it's going to have a decimal that doesn't end. It's going to have it's called an irrational number. So I don't want to use that. I get 0.428 and it keeps going. So I'm going to say that instead it's 3/7. So what is the constant of proportionality? 3/7. So what does that mean? For every 1 cup of white, I need 3/7 cups of red paint. So your constant of proportionality is how much for 1. So here's your cool down image. You guys are going to work on cups of blue and cups of yellow paint, and you're going to answer the question that they have on Canvas. Remember, you're completing it on Canvas. Then you need to export this as a PDF. Here's a video that shows you how to do that. There's extra practice for Khan Academy, Mr. Morgan's help video. You can email a study buddy, or you can set up an appointment with me on Calendly, and I'll be glad to work with you one-on-one.